This podcast contains adult language and stories of true crime. If you don't like laughing, crying, or being horrified at the actions of other humans, this podcast is not for you.
Hey Resolvers, welcome to Resolved Mysteries. This is a podcast where we rewatch the show Unsolved Mysteries and research and give you updates. Today's episode is all about Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. The whole fucking thing.
Cha-ching!
Just nonstop.
They even added a nice jail.
The animation?
Oh, yes. The animation was on point.
Prison
Maybe we
door.
can get that on Instagram.
Yeah.
That took up most of the budget, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we want to thank our patrons, and we want to give a special thank you to Stephanie O, who became a patron like 2 months ago, but it was while another Stephanie was becoming a patron. We didn't thank both Stephanies. Yeah. So thank you, Stephanie O. We are very sorry.
Yes.
And
sorry, girl.
we sent your goodies, girl. So you got your goodies coming.
Get those goodies.
We also want to thank Lauren B, Amanda U, Phoebe H, and Alyssa I. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yes, ladies.
We truly cannot do this without your support.
Yeah, we appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then what was the other stuff we're going to talk about?
Maybe.
Okay, so we wanted to talk about how usually for every month we choose a nonprofit to donate to for every review that we receive. But going forward, we're going to be pulling those nonprofits from suggestions from our Patreon listeners.
Yeah.
So for the month of May, we are going to be taking our listener Jamie T's suggestion, which was NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So every review we receive in May will donate $1, and Jamie T has been very generous and offered to match our donations.
She is the best.
The actual best.
I know.
She's a sweetie.
I know. I kind of want to meet her in real life and just be like, high five.
We for sure would be friends, yes.
Cool. So, as we mentioned, this episode is all about Alcatraz.
Coaching.
Whether you like it or not.
Yep. So much Alcatraz. More information than you ever thought you needed to know.
And stuff you definitely didn't need to know.
So the format's going to be a little bit different. Instead of each one of us taking a case, we're all going to be working on this one thing.
Topic.
Tale, story, subject.
Yeah, so we're going to cover the history. We're going to cover some of the inmates. We're going to cover some escapes. And we're going to cover the amazing test that UN performed, whether or not the 3 inmates made it.
Yeah.
I don't remember their names. Sorry. It wasn't
Okay,
my...
I'll tell you about
Scientific
it.
testing.
Cool.
All right, let's talk about The Rock.
Let's go to prison.
Alcatraz.
I am interested to know this. This is a non-episode situation Allison's
so
bringing us.
I'm
Oh, you're
bringing-
doing histories they did not mention.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool. What was on that island before?
Oh, I'm going to tell you.
Oh, great. Love it.
Okay, so the first person to document the island was Juan Manuel Diaz of Spain. He charted the entire San Francisco Bay and named one of the 3 islands La Isla de los Alcatraces, which is commonly believed to translate as the Island of the Pelicans, because in archaic Spanish, the word Alcatraz meant pelican.
What?
Yep, modern Spanish is pelicano.
Wow.
Yeah, super fun, right?
Okay.
So apparently the island was covered in these pelicans that are no longer, like, they're not on the island anymore. But the whole thing was, like, filled with pelicans, where people who were initially discovering the area would say, like, they would go by in a boat and just, like, a giant flock of pelicans would take off.
Wow.
And they made this, like, crazy sound where it sounded like someone screaming.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Like
Cool.
So the earliest recorded owner of the island of Alcatraz was Julian Workman. It was given to him by the Mexican governor Pio Pico in June 1846, with the understanding that Workman would build a lighthouse on it. He didn't. In 1850, 13th President Millard Fillmore, remember him?
What?
Nobody does.
I mean, I remember that name just because it's silly.
Yeah.
Super silly.
He was the president. He was in the numbers where nobody cared before Lincoln. So he ordered that Alcatraz Island be set aside specifically as a United States military reservation for military purposes based upon the U.S. acquisition of California from Mexico following the Mexican-American War. When the American Civil War broke out in 1861, the island mounted 85 cannons around its perimeter. At this time, it also served as the San Francisco arsenal for storage of firearms to prevent them from falling into the hands of Confederate sympathizers.
Okay. I was like, why would you want to put something out there?
Dude, I love history. I have never once thought about how the Civil War in any way affected the American West.
Yeah.
Like, I
That's
want to
really
read
interesting.
about that. I mean,
Yeah.
of course it did, but I can't imagine how. It's not like there were any battle. There was like nothing out here at that
Right.
point, you know?
And we grew up on the West Coast, and they didn't really talk about that.
No.
in
yeah.
school.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah,
But I mean,
that's really interesting.
somebody had to care because they were keeping weapons away from suspected Confederates.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of would have just assumed nothing was there before Alcatraz was
Yeah,
there.
that's why I wanted to give a little bit because it did exist beforehand. So the first operational lighthouse on the west coast of the United States was built on Alcatraz. It was not built by John Workman. He never got around to it. During the war,
John was not a workman.
Yeah, yep. Yep. During the war, Fort Alcatraz was used to imprison Confederate sympathizers and privateers on the West Coast.
Wow.
But it never fired its guns at the enemy because the enemy was not
there.
Yeah. Studies in 2018 by archaeologists using ground-penetrating radar and laser scans found the remains of structures, ammunition magazines, and tunnels below the penitentiary that was later built. So the prisoners in Alcatraz used to have this theory that there was a dungeon below the prison. It wasn't actually a dungeon. It was just all of these tunnels that were built for the war.
Ooh, that's fun.
Okay.
They built the prison on top of this network of crazy tunnels.
Ooh.
Because of the bay, because of the cold water, the currents, the island itself was always kind of used as a storage place for weapons or people because
Yeah.
you can't get to it
not
and you
easy.
can't get off it.
Yeah.
Alcatraz was used to house soldiers who were guilty of crimes as early as 1859. In 1867, a brick jailhouse was built. Previously, inmates had been kept in the basement of the guardhouse. And in 1868, Alcatraz was officially designated a long-term detention facility for military prisoners. Among the incarcerated at Alcatraz were Confederates caught on the West Coast and some Hopi Native American men in the 1870s. Yeah.
So it was just the basements of the base that was already there.
Yeah, so there was like a little, basically like a small building. There were like a
Wow.
couple of buildings. And then in the one guardhouse, there was a basement, and that's where they kept prisoners.
Wow.
I'm sure it was delightful.
I'm sure it was really close quarters.
Yes, I would think so.
Oh.
In 1898, the Spanish-American War increased the prison population from 26 to over 450. So the got a lot closer. A lot closer. After the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, civilian prisoners were transferred to Alcatraz for safe confinement. In 1909, construction began on the huge concrete main cell block, which remains the island's dominant feature. And it was completed in 1912.
Nice. Do you know when it first started getting inmates?
Yeah, I'm going to go over that.
Do you
want
want
me to do it now? Sure.
Yeah, maybe keep going because then I can.
Okay. The United States disciplinary barracks on Alcatraz were acquired by the United States Department of Justice on October 12th, 1933, and the island became a federal prison in August 1934. At 9:40 a.m. on August 11th, 1934, the first batch of 137 prisoners arrived at Alcatraz, arriving by railroad from the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, which is in Kansas. When the first bunch of prisoners were brought to the island, officials were so worried about people escaping that they literally put the train cars on a barge and sent them all across the island.
Whoa.
Yeah. Most of the prisoners were notorious bank robbers and murderers, or as Stack tells us, Alcatraz was the last stop for prisoners, and only the worst of the, quote, troublemakers went there.
Yeah, I mean,
I
we're
mean-
putting you on a fucking island that you can't.
I think troublemakers is a woeful understatement. The prison initially had a staff of 155 people, including the first warden, James A. Johnson, and the associate warden, J.E. Shuttleworth, both considered to be, quote, iron men. The staff were highly trained in security, but not in rehabilitation. And it also provided housing for the Bureau of Prisons staff and their families. So, like, you lived on the island, you worked on the island.
That's what I was wondering the whole
Yes.
time I watched it. Like,
Yes.
did you live there if you worked
Yes,
there?
you did not take a boat to work every day.
Right.
And you live there, your kids live there,
Oh
y'all
my
live
God. Did they
I-
get paid
I don't know.
Amazingly?
I don't know.
Seriously, why would they want
Why
to do
would
that?
you? Literally, it seems like such a sad existence.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like if you were a young man,
Single.
like you would go and work there for a few years. But I don't know why anybody would want to be a prison guard now.
And have their family there.
Seriously.
Yeah, like have your kids running around. I don't know.
That's wild.
I need to look into that more. That just doesn't
Yeah.
feel right. Alcatraz was the most high security prison in the history of prisons.
Yeah.
Because there was one guard to every 3 inmates, and that was the highest ratio in the country. There were few privileges, and for the first 2 years of operation, the prisoners were forbidden from speaking to each other.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So there is a documentary called The Fear of 13. Have you guys seen it? It's on Netflix.
No.
And it's the story of this man, Nick Yaris, who was convicted of murder and spent 21 years in prison on death row in Pennsylvania. And his prison was a silent prison. And he talks about how it slowly drives you completely insane.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Every single person slowly goes crazy.
Yeah, I think it, like he says something like at some point like someone smiled at him or did something and like he just started to cry.
Oh, that's torture.
You question whether or not you exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When no one looks at you and no one speaks to you and you're in a cell for 23 hours a day.
And in order to keep them in line and following rules and being silent, the punishment must have been pretty terrible if you did talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure lots of people experience that too.
Totally.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend it. It's a really great look at the way our prison system currently works or doesn't work.
Because now it's like that doesn't happen unless you go into the shoe and you don't do it because you don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. I don't think there are any prisons in the United States now that do total silence.
Yeah.
So one of the other major things about Alcatraz was there was a lockdown mechanism, and each prisoner was in their own cell. Out of a 24-hour day, 23 were spent in the cell by themselves. They were also counted up to 14 times a day, which is fucking crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. The prisoners were spot checked really frequently. So basically, this is the prison that's the model for all of the prisons that we see now.
Yeah.
So there are, of course, famous inmates that have spent their time at Alcatraz. I'll tell you about a few of them. Al Capone is one, of course. Once he got to Alcatraz, after being at the Eastern State Pen, where he had lots and lots of benefits there.
Oh my God,
Here's
is that his
picture of
room?
his cell there. This is not at
What?
Alcatraz. This is at the Eastern State Pen. So he had been bribing the wardens there.
Oh my
he
God.
kept thousands of dollars
Wow.
in his cell.
He has some fancy things in there.
He
Yeah.
has like a mahogany desk.
There's a beautiful mahogany desk with a glass door.
A fringe lamp.
There's a velvet red bedspread. It's beautiful. It looks like I'd
Wow.
want to. It looks like an Airbnb in Europe.
Yeah, I'd spend a night there. Me too.
So prisoners at the Eastern State Pen with Al Capone were pissed because he had this beautiful cell and was clearly still paying off
Yes.
people like he had his whole life.
Oh my God.
So he got moved to Alcatraz and he made several attempts to bribe Warden Johnston, who you talked about, but it never worked. And Johnston said, like, you're not going to get away with that. So he only served 4.5 years there and didn't have his lavish lifestyle. So it was difficult for him. And he got into altercations with other inmates. And one of them got him stabbed by a pair of hair scissors. And this is at the time when he also started suffering mentally from syphilis.
Boy, did he suffer mentally from syphilis or what?
It's crazy.
my
I first of
God.
all didn't know about the syphilis thing with him, but I also didn't know like the effects of syphilis on your brain.
Oh,
My
yeah.
gosh, yeah, it's crazy. So he eventually got transferred to more of like a medical unit off of Alcatraz.
When they said that he started putting his clothes on backwards.
Well, and he just
And that at
refused to
first-
take medicine because
Yeah.
he didn't believe
He
them.
paid other inmates to take his medicine.
I think he thought that they were trying to poison him.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Which-
whether...
Oh.
might have been paranoia from
the syphilis.
Who knows? Or he just thinks he's invincible.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have syphilis. Who knows?
That's what I took it as. Is he was just
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll take your pills, And
Yeah.
then,
So another inmate that's maybe a little less known than Al Capone is Robert Stroud. He is known as the Birdman of Alcatraz. He's so interesting.
yeah, I love this.
It's called the Birdman of Alcatraz. That's kind of his nickname. So he bounced around through a couple of prisons. He was violent and had an abusive father. He became a pimp in Alaska, and he shot and killed a bartender who attacked one of his sex workers, and that's how he originally got to jail. But then in jail, he stabbed and killed a prison guard. So he got sent to solitary confinement, and in solitary confinement at Leavenworth, he discovered a nest with 3 injured sparrows in the prison yard. I don't know why he was allowed out in the prison yard since he was in solitary confinement. But he cared for them and eventually acquired a collection of 300 canaries in his cell. And he was super, super smart, and he started researching them and eventually wrote a book called Diseases of Canaries.
I just don't understand.
I
How
know.
that was allowed.
I know. And the book got smuggled out and published in the country in 1933. He's considered he made important advancements to bird studies, avian pathology.
It is amazing what you can do with 23 out of 24 hours by yourself.
Yes, you're literally. But I mean,
Let's
seriously,
all go.
you had to have something to keep you going.
Yeah.
And
So I don't know how he got away with doing that. But eventually prison staff there was really mad, and he got transferred to Alcatraz. And in Alcatraz, he was not allowed to keep any of his birds. When he went to Alcatraz and he couldn't have any of his birds, he wrote a history of the penal system in jail.
wow.
Yeah.
Were you going to mention the alcohol?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that is why. That was kind of the last straw, and why he got sent to Alcatraz. He was making alcohol in his cell.
From birdseed.
Was it birdseed that he was?
Oh, it said from birdseed he distilled.
Fermenting or
sorry,
something?
yeah. Alcohol he distilled from birdseed and contraband items smuggled into.
That is so. It's amazing. You can make alcohol out of anything.
And he would smuggle the stuff in the bottom of bird cages.
Yeah. See, how did they let him do that?
I don't know. And ew to 300 canaries in a cage, with a
and
person.
The first time they said that, I thought they said it was from birdseed from the bottom of cages, and I was like, ew, ew. You're desperate right now.
They probably still would. They don't care. This reminds me, I've talked about this podcast before, but Ear Hustle, which covers stories of inmates at San Quentin. There's an episode about how some of them keep pets, different bugs, or they just need something to love, and it's really sweet. But this guy was clearly crazy. A couple other famous ones. Machine. What?
We're also not going to talk about how he would shave his entire body and walk around naked.
I don't remember that.
Oh, that was him. I thought that was Al Capone towards the end.
Yeah, I think that was the
Did
Birdman.
they say that?
Yeah, they said that.
Yeah.
They said it in UM, yeah.
In Alcatraz?
Yeah, that he would shave all of his
Alcatraz.
body hair off and walk around naked.
Yeah, they said that he was really eccentric.
How was he allowed to do that? How does this guy get away with it?
Oh,
No, I had so many famous inmates. I can't.
yeah, I'm sorry.
I can't talk about every inmate that shaves his body and walks around naked.
though. You're right to put that in. So Machine Gun Kelly, whose name is also George Kelly, was there. He was a gangster who carried a Tommy gun, which was his signature, and he operated heavily during the Prohibition era. I'm not going to talk a lot about these other inmates, but most notably, he kidnapped an oil tycoon named Charles Urschel and held him for 8 days, receiving $200,000 in ransom for his release. After being on the run with his wife for a while, Machine Gun Kelly was caught and imprisoned in Kansas. But in Kansas, he kept saying, I'm going to escape. I'll get out of here. I'm going to go get my wife out of the prison she was in, I think in Cincinnati, and we're going to be together by Christmas. He just kept saying that. So they were like, okay, bye, you're going to Alcatraz.
Yeah.
They're like,
put you on an island.
You should have kept that on the DL.
yeah, shut up. And so he spent almost 17 years there, which is a fairly long time.
Wow.
So Roy Gardner is another famous inmate, but we know he's not a household name anymore. But he was the last great American train robber.
Whoa.
And he actually did escape from federal penitentiary at McNeil Island. So that's why he was sent there, because he had proven he could escape at one point.
Yeah, there were
From
a
an
handful,
island.
right, that were
Yeah.
previously escapes.
Yeah. And Gardner was one of the first criminals at Alcatraz during the hardest years, so he was there kind of towards the beginning. He described Alcatraz as, quote, the toughest, hardest place in the world.
Wow.
And he wrote a book called Hellcatraz, The Rock of Despair.
Wow.
Oh, and
You can't roll your eyes at that, Allie.
Alcatrolic. We have not been posting pictures of our...
I do on Patreon.
Oh, on
Yeah, she does
Patreon.
on
That's
Patreon.
right. Yes. Love it. You'll have to see what we're talking about if you go to our Patreon. So he has 2 subtitles: Alcatraz, subtitle The Rock of Despair, subtitle The Tomb of the Living Dead.
Damn.
Wow.
Tell us how you really feel. Okay.
Yeah. And he is reported to have planned another escape with, I forget the man's name, but his last name was Rowe, and he actually did escape, but like drowned in the water probably. But Roy Gardner didn't go with him, but he claimed that he helped this guy plan it. Henri or Henry Young was a bank robber, murderer, and murderer of another inmate once he got to prison. He tried to escape in 1939. There's Alvin Karpis, who is public enemy number 1. As they used to say, lots of them were public enemy number 1 at that time.
That's impressive.
A gangster, and he was nicknamed Creepy Karpis for his sinister smile. James Whitey Bulger spent time at Alcatraz.
He's Bulger.
Oh, Bulger. And Mickey Cohen, who was part of the Jewish mafia. I don't care about mafia or gangster stuff, so I
Yeah.
didn't do a lot of research on these guys, but
That's fine.
we got to get into some escapes, babies.
Yeah, babies.
Okay, so this is kind of what this episode of mostly centers around, is this escape by, well, once they got there, 3 men. So I'm going to tell you that story, and Allison and Carlin can jump in as they want to because they also watched it.
I'll start with my very first
Go
note
ahead.
from the intro, which was, is it just me or is Clarence Anglin super hot? I literally rewound because I was like, who was that?
is.
Yeah.
It has
super
been
hot.
so long since one of us has had a crush on someone.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a cutie. His other brother's not, but
No.
he is. He's
Yeah.
a cutie. We'll post his picture.
Oh my.
So, full disclaimer, I'm just instead of rewriting this whole 90-minute episode
Yeah.
and telling it to you guys, unsolved.fandom.com basically has kind of the script or whatever of what Robert Stack says and how the story's told. If you ever want to go there, it's great. And they have lots of good quotes. So I just saved myself hours of time and I copy and pasted that. I'm just going to tell you that story with that in front of me. So I want to give them credit in case anyone's like, she's reading that exact same thing.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
But they do a great job of summarizing.
They do. And why rewrite it?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we're going to also interject our opinions. and
Who
stuff.
cares about plagiarism?
It isn't plagiarism if you like totally admit to it.
Yeah. You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah, legally you're fine. It's fine, I'm sure.
So there's Clarence Anglin, and then there's a Clarence Carnes. So there are 2 Clarences in this story. Clarence Carnes was a notorious inmate who was known for running lots of different things within the prison system. One of the underground things that he ran was he was helped pass out the library books, so he could help get information from one prisoner to another. So he plays a part in this escape attempt, but he doesn't actually escape. And he actually was invited to escape, but he said, they watch me too closely. I can't. I will give you guys up if I try to escape. So remember his name's Clarence
Well, and
Carnes.
he was only 18 when he came there.
16.
And he...
Wasn't he only
No,
16?
it said when he arrived, he was 18.
Oh, okay.
In 1946, and then he spent 13 years there. So he knew everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But I'll be talking about him some. So the plot to escape actually began with an inmate named Alan West. And Alan West, so the inmates there could work and you had to earn everything. And they worked for very little money. Like Al Capone made, I think, 7 cents an hour or something, or a day in the laundry room when he worked there.
I love that.
I know.
That's great.
Alan West was assigned to paint the top tier and ceiling of the cell block. And so it's stories. So it's like jail cells stacked on top of each other. And basically, he's in cells painting the ceiling.
Yeah.
Cells that no one is in.
That's the job I would want. If
Yeah.
I was in prison.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like, get me the fuck away from everyone. I'm going to come up here and just
Yes.
paint and sing to myself.
Yes.
Singing Beyonce.
Yes, you know I would be.
Abby, homecoming. So while working up there, all by his lonesome, Wes discovered that with some hard work, he could probably get to the prison roof through a hole and a ventilation shaft that was in the ceiling. I'm doing lots of hand movements. No one
She
can see
is.
me.
She's fully describing
I'm
it
just
with her
picturing
hands.
it. So the ventilation duct is like a perfect circle, and then whoever built it thought they did a good job of like, you're not going to get out of here because it's lots of cross bars, like rebar, all crossed together, maybe like 10. And so no one can fit through. Like maybe you can fit your hand through, but that's not going to do anything. So the bars you cannot cut through, but Alan West is a smarty pants, and he thought, well, I'm just going to cut through the ceiling and cut a circle around those bars because the bars don't go through to the ceiling. Like it's not rebar that is feet long. So that's where his plan starts to come into place, and he has this idea. And he thought, if I can just cut a hole around it, then we'll be able to push the big circle out on top of the roof.
Smarty pants.
Yeah. Alan West enlisted the help of John and Clarence Anglin. Clarence is the cutie. Mm-hmm. They were both bank robbers. They're brothers. That must be a proud family. Mm-hmm. And they had also escaped from other...
My son is the godfather of Alcatraz.
And my other son is too. They're both there. And both of them had escaped from other institutions. So they had experience doing this. The Anglin brothers had useful skills. They were...
Yeah, they did.
They really did.
Like, it was like on point for escaping the prison.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, especially the way they're going to do it. So one of their skills is they grew up in Florida near a lot of swamps, so they knew how to construct rafts. One of the reasons why he wanted them.
And were extremely good swimmers.
Good swimmers, and they knew about currents and stuff like that.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, somebody didn't think that out so well when they sent
they're
them
like,
there.
let's put them on the island. They'll never get off. They're like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds good.
Okay, so in this episode, there's a man named Don DeNevy who's interviewed, and he's a professor and writer, and he actually, of course, after this escape attempt, co-wrote a manuscript with Clarence Carnes, who we talked about before. So he is fairly close with him and gets a lot of his information from Clarence Carnes, and then he's reporting it on UM.
Oh, yeah.
Years and years, of course, later. Sorry. I'll be talking about him because there's a few quotes from him coming, just so you know. But that's how we know a lot of this information is through research that like writers went in and talked to inmates to know what exactly happened. Then there's kind of a central figure in the plot, and his name is Frank Morris. Former captain of the guards Philip Bergen says, quote, "He was the thinker. Anything connected with this escape that had any real brains behind it can be credited to Morris," unquote. So Alan West like has this idea, but then Frank Morris is like, okay, well, here's how we like actually can make it better.
He had like a high IQ and
Did they say what Morris was in for?
bank robber.
Oh, so everybody's a fucking bank robber.
Yeah.
It's like before
Which you have to be pretty like cunning to do. Like,
and planning.
And it's also like this was before the war on drugs when everyone was in jail for drugs. Like bank robbing is like the number one thing.
Yeah.
You know, like it's crazy.
Yes.
I feel they
Times
said
have
bank
changed.
robber more than they said murder.
Yeah.
But every person that they went through was bank robber. Yeah.
Really good point.
Totally. So Clarence Carnes, remember the book guy, he had told Frank Morris that behind the cell block, there's like a corridor, a hallway basically, behind all of their cells. So if they could get back to that, then they could get up to the ventilation shaft. So,
And I don't remember, did they say how he knew that?
maybe because of his job or something.
Yeah, I think maybe.
And he had been there for so long, and that's where like different water pipes are and just different things like that.
Yeah, that's one of the risks you run having the prisoners work on the prison structure.
Yep.
They're bound to collect information.
They're going to figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Frank Morris thought, well, if we can get back there to this like hidden corridor, then that will really help us out to get up to the ventilation shaft. So they start to devise a plan so they can dig through their cell walls, which are probably mostly made of like plaster, like things you can dig away at.
And like bad cement, like badly done cement.
Yes, and old. It's still even old at that time.
Yeah.
Have I said what year this is?
Yep,
June
1962.
11th? Yeah, this is 1962. Again, Philip Bergen, captain of the guards, says...
Sorry, I just found a note. Carnes knew of a corridor from his first escaped attempt.
Oh, right, because I talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I got Clarence Carnes.
Okay, so we'll talk more about him.
Yeah.
Bergen says, quote, in the early part of the evening, there was what they called a music hour, and anybody who had a string instrument could play. When that music is playing, it has an effect of deafening the officer who is making his inspections. The inmates that were digging were just digging away.
Well, and Carnes was probably like passing out library books that were like, be really loud tonight. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
they were all.
It's incredible how, like, almost all the inmates knew about it, were in on it, were helping them, and I'll get into more how they help them, but, like, no one told the guards.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy. Wouldn't you
cool.
think, like, they're going to get out? I want to get out. I'm going to tell on them
Yeah.
because I'm jealous. None of them did that.
Because I guess anybody had a chance if somebody could do it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true.
Criminal code. Although if somebody does it, then they're going to tighten things up really quickly, too.
And they're probably going to,
So yeah, during this music hour, the inmates used spoon handles that were bound together, which Stack shows, and we'll put a picture up of if you haven't seen the episode, to dig out the back of their cells. And the noise of that is hidden because of the music that's playing. Over a very long period of time, like months, the Anglins, Frank Morris and Alan West each carved a hole in the back wall of their cells. And then Alan West crafted like false ventilation fronts to put in front of the hole so that someone walking by wouldn't just see a glaring hole.
Yes.
So smart.
Like, they must have gotten so good at whatever I'm doing, I need to be able to put away immediately.
Yes, they had to.
It's like Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
Like, obviously, Stephen King pulled so much information from this escape. It had to have been. Even, like, down to the librarian, like, in Shawshank Redemption, the old man who had been there forever since he was a teenager, and he would pass, like, notes and contraband. Like,
Yeah.
What's the other prison
It's
escape
just so
one where
smart.
they dig through the tunnel?
And it's like, it's not like you could be sloppy with any of it. So they were doing like this highly detailed work.
Yeah.
And then hiding it every single day, multiple times a day.
and, like, where were they? When you're digging out, there's pieces. Like, where are you hiding the pieces?
Where were they putting?
Yeah. Like, there's all this crazy shit to think
good
about.
point.
You know?
The Great Escape is just the best prison escape movie of all time.
All right.
Starring Steve McQueen.
Okay.
They dig a tunnel, and one of the guys he's really big, and he's very claustrophobic.
Oh.
And so am I.
That's what I was thinking too. None of them could have done this if they were claustrophobic.
Yeah.
No way. That's a good one. So, I know, it's just all crazy how it worked out. It gets crazier. While they're thinking like, all right, now we have to get to work thinking about how we're actually going to get off of this island through the water, they think we have to do some things out of our cells. So to make it possible for them to be out of their cells but still be counted during like head count, they devise these amazing
Arts and crafts.
Yes. They devise these amazing dummy heads to put in their bunks.
Yeah. And just to give you an idea, like everybody's head is right at the bars as the guards walk by.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're like in the back corner. Like their heads are supposed to be right by where they can see.
They're
Yeah.
lumpy paper mache heads.
It's so crazy. So Don Eberly, who headed the FBI investigation into the escape, described the ingenious deception. He says, quote, they decided that they would have to make dummy heads to be in their bunks in case one of them was not in there when the guard would go by. This was at a time when the lights were turned low and it would be difficult to recognize other than a face was in the bed. So they make it like it's half cut off. So it's basically the profile of a head and it's just one eye like they're sleeping on their side. It's so
Yeah.
brilliant. And then Leon Whitey Thompson is an inmate that's in this episode who had been at Alcatraz, and he's hilarious. And he says, quote, Morris asked me about how you mix flesh tone, because you see, I'm an artist. I did a lot of oil painting on Alcatraz. I began to wonder, why is he so interested in flesh tone? And then I began to put it all together, because they needed a flesh tone color for the dummy heads. It's like they're all in on it.
And all the detail of like, who should I ask about this?
Yes.
Oh, that guy
So,
paints.
yeah.
Fun.
So the dummies were made from soap, concrete powder, and stolen paint. And then one of the Anglin brothers worked in the barber shop, and so they would collect hair as they could and pasted it on the dummies' heads. And we'll post a picture, but the hair looks great.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Like I pictured these horribly done, like stupid things that were going to be so obvious, but they really like put a lot of work into it.
Yes, it's crazy. So this takes all of this, like their dummy heads are in their bed while they are they went out the back of their cell. Then they would go up to the ventilation shaft where, the one was doing his painting job, and they were drilling around the ventilation shaft to try and push it out. And the drills, which we'll also post a picture of, were made from vacuum parts and barber shears.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And then
We are the worst generation ever.
so Clarence Carnes, who had been there for 18 years at that time, was so impressed, and he wrote later in his manuscript that he wrote with Don DeNevy. He said, quote, "Many times through the years, I'd met men who had tried to escape, but their flaw had been too little planning and being too hasty. They had not been thorough in their thinking, and that's what defeated them, but not this time." So he's even like standing back, really impressed by them.
Yeah, it's such a game of patience.
Yeah. So you might wonder, how in the world can they be working up there and no one's seeing them? Well, it's so frustrating, but also amazing. So Alan West's painting area, he still has this one painting job. You would think someone would be like, aren't you done with that yet? Or like, you've been in this one area for a really long time.
Yeah.
So he'd like purposely kick debris down the side so that it would fall down. And because of that, he eventually was able to get the guards to let him hang blankets up so that no debris would fall down.
The reenactment's pretty great of that, too.
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing up there?
He's like so bothered by the dust
What's
falling
going on
down.
up there? Also, he's painting. Why is there dust? Like, why did no one check on that?
Yeah.
There's debris and dust because they're drilling a hole in the ceiling. He's supposed to just be painting.
Yeah.
So that he just hangs up full blankets all around so they can work in privacy for literally months.
Built a blanket for it.
Yes.
And they were like, that's probably fine.
It's good. That's
like,
good.
that's
good.
cute.
We don't want to make a mess. So yeah, let him hang that up. So since the blankets are hung up there, it's totally private, and the 4 prisoners would take turns going up there and using raincoats that other inmates would pass them. So just like, I have an extra raincoat, I'm going to give it to them. Any extra raincoats around, like, pass it to the men that are escaping. It was just something that they knew to do.
It truly does take a village.
Yeah.
They couldn't have done it without the help of their brethren.
And nobody's like, where are all the raincoats going?
Nope.
I'm sorry. Why do they have raincoats? They're in cells 23 hours out of the day. They could just go outside the 1 hour it's not raining.
Well, thankfully
Maybe
they
that's
did.
why no one noticed they were missing.
So with these raincoats, they start assembling a raft, and they also make life jackets, and they're pretty good.
So smart.
It's just crazy. So
Like nothing was half baked.
no, and it took them 8 months. They're like sewing, they're gluing things together.
They made some sort of tar or something to coat everything in.
Yes.
I don't know what that was made from. They didn't
Wax,
even say.
maybe?
Oh, maybe wax. Yeah.
So it's just crazy that no one went up to check on Alan West's painting job. And then if they had gone up there, they would have seen like all their raft materials, because that's then where they stored everything.
It's just the difference of a blanket. Like a
Unless,
blanket.
do you
is
think
the
maybe
only
they
thing.
kept all that stuff below in their little...
It said that they kept a lot of it up in that area.
Right, because the blankets were up all the time. No one checked.
Because they could.
It's crazy.
Can you imagine like the warden after the escape being like, are you fucking serious though? Really? Like,
They're training a new guy. They're like, that's the fort. It's fine. We just leave it. We
yeah.
don't look in
They
there.
like it.
that's the fort.
So finally, the day to escape arrives, and June 11th, 1962, they all are like, all right, it's time. So when night falls, they start to go out the holes in their cell walls. And this is unclear to me because poor Alan West, who basically started this whole idea, is not able to get through the hole in his cell wall, which I'm confused because hadn't he been going, maybe he, since he worked up in that painting area, didn't have to slip out the back hole.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because he just had access to being up there anyway.
Yeah.
But the other guys had to slip out the back.
But still, it's like
Wouldn't
the one
wouldn't
detail
you
they
test that?
overlooked?
Just give it a shot.
Yes.
Give it a test.
Yeah.
So the poor guy's like, I can't fit. I can't go.
He's like poo in the fucking tree.
He's Pooh Bearing it in a different way.
His butt hanging out.
His legs. Oh, that's so sad. He's just trying to get that honey. Frank Morris and the England brothers are able to slip through their cells because they've been doing it the whole time.
Yeah.
And they go to the corridor and they go up the ventilation shaft room, and they're able to push the thing out onto the roof and get out. And they're like, we're not waiting for him. He should have made sure that hole was big enough.
They're like, too slow, Joe. We're going.
Yeah. And so they've got their life jackets on, and they carry their raft that they've made out of raincoats. And then Don Eberly, the FBI investigator, says, quote, they had taken the keys out of a concertina accordion. And since they did that, they could then put their hand on one strap and push it up and down. And this worked as the bellows, which blew up their raft once they got to the shore.
Jeez.
So
They
smart.
literally thought of everything except the one guy's hole.
Yes. Gosh, you cannot ignore the holes.
I
Don't
know.
ignore holes.
You
Also, like, talk about using your brains for good and set, like, one left turn and they could have been president.
Yes.
They could have invented like
Absolutely.
the first spaceship or something, and these guys are like making rubber heads and hanging out on rafts and stuff, you know?
Yep.
Yep.
Although that blanket fort was probably pretty awesome.
So it's fully dark. They're trying to fill their raft up as quickly as they can. And before they were noticed, they were able to get, supposedly, into the water and try and make their escape attempt off the rock. Eventually, though, during count, which this also is crazy because they've made it not being discovered this long, like the dummy heads not being discovered, and they had their dummy heads in their bed, but that night they did figure it out. So I don't know how.
Well,
it
were they
showed
using
them
the
like
dummy heads
touching them.
before?
Yeah, that's how they would go work
Yeah.
overnight.
But they
maybe
were-
only like one at a time.
And I think they were always smart enough to only put it out after they knew their cell had been counted already.
maybe
this
so
was
they
the
weren't
first
going to
time
be
it was
like
truly
touched
them
or
and
that's
the dummies
true.
in there when they did the count.
That's true.
Because there's always that one guy that just like goes by and ruffles everybody's hair.
Yeah.
Good night, buddy.
Good night. A
yours
little
is so
tap on the
soft.
cheek. So eventually that night, the breakout was discovered, and this opened one of the largest manhunts since the Lindbergh kidnapping.
Wow.
So Patrick Mahoney, who's a former guard at Alcatraz, took part in the search, and he said, quote, we were ordered to go out on the bay and, of course, start looking around the island, and then over at Angel Island, scanning the beaches to see if anything that pertained to them might have washed up. It became evident that we weren't going to find them. Whether they had made it or not, no one knew for sure. So Angel Island is another island near Alcatraz and then near San Francisco. And, of course, the men would have wanted to go to San Francisco, but depending on the way the current takes you, and there have been other escape attempts where men tried to go out, but they actually washed up on Angel Island, which
Yeah.
is such a bummer.
Yeah.
Or another escape attempt also. If you're going to talk about this, you can cut it. But there's another one, I forget, I don't know this man's name, but he stole an army uniform and then just calmly walked onto an army boat or Navy boat, I'm not sure which one, and was crossing his fingers at that boat was going to San Francisco, but it was going to Angel Island. So by the time he was discovered missing, people from Alcatraz were waiting for him on Angel Island to take him right back.
That sucks.
It's really hard because I kind of want all these guys to get out. Like, I don't, but I'm rooting
After
for them
all
in a
that
weird
effort.
way.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like they put so much work into it.
Yeah.
You know?
And at least none of these main guys were very violent guys.
Yeah, they're just bank robbing.
Yeah.
It's like a victimless crime, you know?
I mean, maybe they were violent. I guess I don't know. During the first 24 hours after the search, nothing came up. But then eventually remnants of the raft started to be floating around, which made them think the raft fell apart. And now they're just finding pieces of it. And this also made a lot of the searchers think that they had drowned. And then also a homemade oar was discovered floating between Alcatraz and Angel Island, which also kind of showed the way that the current was naturally going would have been maybe towards Angel Island. Then apparently this paddle matched one that the convicts had left behind in their cell block, and I don't know why they left it. Was it just a mistake?
That's
or
what
did
I was
they think
wondering.
they didn't
Maybe it
need
was like the first prototype. Wasn't good enough.
Maybe so. So then this is kind of sad. 2 days after the breakout, a rubber-wrapped packet, so this is also something one of them thought to do, was discovered floating near Angel Island. And in it had 80 family photographs, a money order that belonged to one of the escapees, and an address book. So this would be like literally everything that they had with them, whichever escapee it was, and they lost it. So Don Eberly says again, quote, probably the earliest they could have gotten into the water would be 10:30 that night. The outgoing tide started that night at 10, and that outgoing tide is very strong, and I firmly believe they were taken by the currents into the Pacific Ocean. So instead of going towards San Francisco.
Yeah, they like blew right by San Francisco.
So then, in addition, a Norwegian ship spotted a body floating 20 miles past the Golden Gate Bridge around that, on the day of the escape. So I'm guessing that meant the next day because it was night.
Yeah.
Right.
And no one was able to retrieve it, but apparently it matched a description of Frank Morris. But who knows? It's a body floating 20 miles away. How can they know that?
Also, like, the boat was like, I'm not going back for that body. I don't care. No. Like, nobody was able to get it. Nobody tried.
Bye. In the episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about some other theories of if they survived or not. But there's one in the episode where a man, the day after they escape, a man claiming to be John Anglin called a San Francisco law firm, and this law firm was known to represent inmates at Alcatraz. Attorney named Eugenia McGowan answered, and she says in the episode, quote, he said, I'm John Anglin, and I want you to contact the U.S. Marshal's office. I said, well, I'm not going to do that unless I know why. And he said, do you know who I am? And I said, no. He said, read the newspapers, and he hung up. And so they never heard from that man
He's
again.
like, how dare you?
So who knows if that were him or not. So then Clarence Carnes and Alan West know probably the most about the plot out of any of the inmates that know about the plot, which is almost all of them, but they're like the experts on it. And so they kind of provide more information about what was planned after they escaped. And also, Clarence Carnes claimed that a few weeks after the break, he received a postcard that said, gone fishing. And this was supposed to be kind of a apparently sign from one of the escapees that they had gotten out. It was a prearranged code. So Clarence Carnes thought that at least one of them made it.
Did he ever show that to anyone?
No. Carnes believed that Morris and the Anglin brothers had help from the outside, and he had claimed that Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, who's the underworld king of Harlem, had arranged a boat to pick them up. And according to Carnes, the boat was to pick them up and then take them to Pier 13, which is a very busy San Francisco district. So that seems a little bit not like the best idea. And so the FBI guy, Bergen, says, quote, my feeling is that's just something that Carnes dreamed up and that there is not the slightest possibility that there's any truth in it. A lot of people, and I will get to this a little bit, but people think like they're all very smart, even Alan West and Clarence Carnes. And so they were feeding things to the FBI that would help them if they did make it, like give them things that were not actually how they were planning on getting out.
I didn't even think about that. I thought it was more like bragging rights, like I knew what they were doing.
Right.
They made it.
Yeah, so I found that only from a 1993 Chicago Tribune article. And another inmate, Thomas Kent, was also knew about the plot, and he was actually featured on America's Most Wanted. They paid him $2,000 to talk about the story. Kent said he was invited to go, but that he didn't know how to swim, so he couldn't go, and who knows if that's true. But he said...
I feel like a lot of prisoners are like, they asked me too, but I just couldn't.
I was busy.
So Thomas Kent said that Alan West originally told the FBI. So Alan West told them a different story. And he said that the three men planned to rob someone and steal a car when they got to shore. But no thefts or robberies were reported that night or the next night. That would match that description of them. And so that made authorities think they didn't make it. But Thomas Kent is saying that's not true. And Alan West just said that to throw off authorities looking for car thefts. And that the truth is a girlfriend of Clarence Anglin, of course he had a girlfriend, was waiting ashore and was to drive them to Mexico. And that they had been studying Spanish in Alcatraz before making their getaway. So that's what another inmate, Thomas Kent, says. And that's not in the episode.
All meanwhile, everything else they were doing, they were studying Spanish.
And so Thomas Kent said more than 40 prisoners helped in the escape.
Damn.
In their own way.
I love that.
People have different thoughts about whether they made it or not, and we'll talk more about that. But one thing I found said that a friend of the brothers, the Anglin brothers, claimed that he had encountered them in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1975. And he says he even took a photograph of them, and I have the photo and we'll post it. And forensic experts concluded that the photograph was most likely of the Anglins.
What?
That is
I
so
would know
cool.
Clarence Anglin's face anywhere. Please
He's
show
got
it to
big
me.
sunglasses on.
Oh,
It's
damn
going to
it.
be hard to know. They've got some chops, too.
They
some
got
mutton
chops.
chops.
Oh, wow.
So I'm guessing that's our boy, but I don't know. He hasn't aged well.
Okay.
Well,
So
the
who
life
knows?
on the run is pretty stressful, I would assume.
Sure.
Yeah. And then another one, in 2018, the FBI revealed that the San Francisco PD had received a letter in 2013. So this is, people have been talking a little bit about Alcatraz, and this is the newest thing. The letter reads, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. I'm 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." And the letter stated that Clarence and Frank had since passed away. If this is John Anglin, he's kind of like asking for, basically saying, if I turn myself in, can I get medical care? But then nothing really has come of that. I don't think they've been able to contact him again.
What year was that?
2013.
Cool.
But the FBI didn't reveal it until 2018. And they've tried to get fingerprint and DNA and handwriting analysis, but it's all inconclusive on that letter.
Wow, so it's still a thing.
Yep.
Like 2018. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the escape. We're going to talk more about if we think they made it or not.
Okay. So now I'm going to intro. I'm just introing, right? Or am I telling it?
You're telling it.
Okay.
Do it up.
I'm going to tell you about the test that does, basically to prove whether or not this escape could have happened. And we first start with Robert Stack in a puffy coat with a headset. We've never seen him this way before.
Quite just in one ear, too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very on the scene. And one little tidbit that they kind of said at the end of what Eliza was talking about was that in the prison library they found where the Anglins and Morris had access to 2 magazines that could have aided their escape. There was an article in Popular Mechanics about watertight sailing jackets, and they had an issue of Sports Illustrated that had a featured article on makeshift rubberized boats.
Wow.
So they think this is what they modeled their jackets and raft from.
I had a feeling. I have a feeling they canceled those subscriptions.
And I don't know, I'm assuming for their recreation of this, they used something from that article because they mentioned it right before they went into this. So does their whole recreation. They make a raft similar to what the convicts could have made and send out 3 kayakers to attempt to raft to shore. To test the theory, they had to abandon the raft and swim to shore. And they have endurance swimmer Dave Horning attempting to swim all the way to shore of San Francisco Beach. So then Stack says we go to Diana. And I was like, who? And it's Diana Nyad, which I just thought was a reporter, but Eliza told me she is a swimmer.
She's a queen.
So it makes so much more sense. So I pulled up her Wikipedia page because I didn't really know about her.
You thought she was a bad reporter, be honest.
I did, and I wrote a lot of snarky notes before I knew this, so sorry. I'm not going to go back on it now. Diana Nyad is known for championship swimming, endurance swimming, journalism, and motivational speaking. Nyad gained national attention in 1975 when she swam around Manhattan, and in 1979 when she swam from North Bimini?
Are you having a stroke?
Bimini? Is that how you say it? Bimini. Bimini bibbidi boop.
How do you spell it? Bimini?
Yeah.
Where is it located?
Sorry, in 1979, when she swam from North Bimini, the Bahamas, to Juno Beach, Florida, which is 102 miles. She did more swims after that, after this episode, which, I don't know, should I mention them?
Yes, I'll mention it.
Okay.
Listen, you've got a real advocate over here, so you better mention
Got a
it.
fan.
Well, so like during the time of this episode, she would not have needed to be introduced. Like everybody knew who she was. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Can I tell what she did after?
So, okay, in 2013, on her 5th attempt and at age 64, she became the first person confirmed to swim from Cuba to Florida without the aid of a shark cage.
She just was like punching sharks in the face.
Swimming from Havana to Key West, 110 miles. Nyad was also once ranked 13th among U.S. women squash players.
Fun fact.
She's great, but mostly her hair is great in this episode. I love everything about
Oh
her.
my God, she's been on Dancing with the Stars.
Yep.
Wow.
We should ask your mother if she's watched
Yes,
her.
we should. Okay, so anyway, to put it into context, she's a swimmer, and that's why she was on the show.
Put it into context for Carlin,
Yeah.
which we
Who
need to
clearly
do.
doesn't give
I
a
mean,
shit.
come on. Does anybody know who she is now? I mean, besides our parents?
Yeah, she's been on Oprah.
Oh, okay.
Super Soul.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Diana. You
She is
deserve
a super
respect.
soul.
All right. So Diana Nyad is on the other side. She's on San Francisco Bay, right?
She was,
in charge of history.
on a boat too, though.
Yeah. But anyway, she's like Stack is on the launch end and she's on the other end.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, you're right.
And we just need to talk about her hair real quick. Because I'm pretty sure she was wearing the spiky blonde wig that I hated from all the other segments.
It does look like that.
It looks very much like it.
It was her real hair, though. I think she's very.
It is her real
pretty.
hair. She
She's
actually is gorgeous. And that hair was unfortunate.
Uh-huh.
Well, it was the times.
Yeah, it was a spiky pixie cut mullet.
How do you even get it that straight and stand up ish?
Oh my gosh, she must have been straightening it.
Amy Mann had her hair like that in that Voices Carrie video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
All right, we will
I'll do it.
absolutely include a picture.
You'll do it? Okay.
You're going to do it with yours right now?
Yeah.
Live while we listen. So, Nyad is basically interviewing everyone who's participating in this recreation. The rafters say that the advantages they have over the Alcatraz escapees is that they're trying this during the day instead of at night. Huge advantage.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
This is
I love
not
how
realistic.
he was like, well, a slight, it's like,
Yeah.
come on, a slight advantage.
Yeah. He's like, we can see the 8-foot seawall and the leg breaking rocks below.
Oh my god.
They can also see currents and other obstacles to try to avoid them. And he doubts that the inmates could have seen these things at night. Obviously not. They wouldn't have. So she thanks them all for their, quote, adventuresome spirits and says they'll be checking in with them all the way along. But then when they redid it, like the boat guys didn't have to climb down the rocks. Only the swimmer guy did. Do you remember that?
I
They
mean,
just got to start on the bottom?
Yeah, this isn't a true.
And I was like, that would have been the hardest part, getting all your fucking shit down the rock slope. I don't know. So
You are ornery right now.
I'm ornery. So then she switches over to interviewing Dave Horning, the swimmer. And she says he's swum, which is swum even a word?
Oh.
She says swum. Some of the coldest bodies of water in the world, including the Soviet Union. What the hell? Why would you do that? I hate it.
Oh my god.
I mean, like, why does this guy do this to
Honey,
himself?
There are
So-
people that do weird shit
It's
like that.
unbelievable.
There are people that
Swum.
jump off a building.
Swum is a word.
Okay, great. I feel better now. Dave explains that it's more or less like a shock to the body when he goes in the water. Diana
Yep.
says she heard that they wouldn't even let the inmates take cold showers so that they couldn't attempt to acclimate their bodies to the cold temperatures of the bay.
I thought that was a good fact. Diana
loved
gave
that
us.
fact.
That was a good fact if it was a fact, or maybe they just didn't want to pay for hot water.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, I don't know if it was that thought out, but
Yeah.
that is really smart if that's true.
Yeah.
Dave says the only thing they have over him was motivation, escaping. Once they hit the water, they would have wanted to just keep going so that they could escape. Adrenaline would have kept them insulated for a while after they got in. Diana calls. Okay, so then Diana starts talking to Robert Stack over their headsets, and she calls him Bob.
I know.
I hated it. How dare you?
They're close. They're buddies.
Yeah. And then she goes, I'm glad it's not me in the water, and turns to the camera and just gives the cheesiest smile. Oh my God.
I knew giving Carlin the reenactment would be amazing.
And then I wrote, let's go back to a world where Robert Stack does not have a co-host. Stack says they'll take the same route that they believe the escapees took. Stack explains even if they were trying to get to Angel Island, the current probably pulled them toward the bridge, and if they could have made it across the strong currents, they'd have made it to the shore. They have multiple camera crews, including one inside of a Goodyear blimp. Like, this was a big fucking deal.
I did not even catch
I
that.
missed that.
Oh my God. I was like, wow. Like, the biggest budget we've ever seen for any of the
Bigger
episodes.
blimp budget.
Bigger blimp budget for sure. They also have paramedic teams on hand, thank God, because this is ridiculous and dangerous. They explain that the water is 47 degrees, which is colder than, quote, the ice water you keep in your refrigerator.
Thanks for that point of reference.
Maybe in the 80s when
I don't keep ice water in my
fridge is colder.
refrigerator. And I keep water. I don't know. I didn't understand that.
Well, like refrigerated water, but I guess did they even have that then? Like the water that comes out of your door?
This was before refrigerators. I see what you're saying. I don't know.
They didn't, I don't think.
Fuck.
Then
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Diana explains to us why this is dangerous for the human body. Thanks, Diana. She explains hypothermia. Great, thank you.
There are some dummies watching this show.
I
back
guess,
then.
but everybody knows why we shouldn't be swimming in 47-degree water.
Maybe not landlocked people. I'm not saying landlocked people are dumb, but maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe not. So then I just wrote, what the fuck is wrong with this swimmer? He better be getting paid really well. Why is he doing this? Why is he wearing a Speedo instead of a wetsuit? None of this is
didn't wear a
realistic.
wetsuit?
No, he was in a Speedo.
He's fully naked.
Which, like, I don't know if that's an advantage or disadvantage because they would have been wearing, like, really heavy clothing that would have weighted them down.
He's an expert, so he probably did it with, that's probably an advantage.
Yeah.
Because
But
you
again,
swim
not
faster, but you'll get hypothermia.
Right. You're going to be colder, but you're going to be lighter. I don't know.
You better swim faster because you're going to die.
You did.
Dave is also wearing an underwater microphone, which is kind of cool. The rafters get off to an awkward start because, of course, the raft is the most awkward thing ever to drag through the water.
You know what? This raft sort of sucks.
Yeah, nothing about that thing is aerodynamic or like water dynamic.
It's made from
whatever you wanna call it.
raincoats.
Yeah. So Diana explains that Dave is a trained swimmer who is moving very quickly because the swim would take him about 45 minutes and he needs to stay warm.
I thought you were going to
Thanks,
say
Diana.
I thought you were going to say train wreck instead of train swimmer. I was like,
I mean, the Anglin brothers were supposedly great swimmers and couldn't have been in the condition that Dave is in because they hadn't swum in years. They weren't used to cold water, so he has the advantage in that way. The rafters are progressing very slowly when they start out, like ridiculously slowly.
They look pretty silly and sloppy.
Yeah, you can
It
tell,
looks
like,
sad.
right
It
as
looks
they
very
started, they were
awkward.
Like, what the fuck did we get into?
Yeah. I can't believe we're only getting a day rate for this.
Yeah. She says if they keep at this rate, it would take them 2 hours, which would be right about when they're on the brink of hypothermia.
They're like, great, thanks, Diane.
She's like telling them that as they're trying to swim really hard.
Got it.
Diana explains that what they would look for in a swimmer to know if he's experiencing hypothermia. So she says it's if his mouth starts to look frozen, if he gets confused and starts swimming in circles.
Oh,
What the fuck?
She's like, and we're going to wait for it to get that bad.
Literally, that was kind of what she was saying.
Because that's
We're
great
looking for those
television.
signs.
Yeah, and I was like, I just can't believe they're doing this on television with all these film crews. Like, what if this guy dies on this fucking crazy budget episode? Like,
I think they would not be too upset about it. I mean, it would have made for interesting television.
well, I'm sure he signed something. Like, they were protected. 20 minutes into Dave's attempt to swim, they bring in a marine biologist to explain that the man-eating sharks all the inmates were always told about were a myth. He explains that they are not in the bay, but they are outside of the Golden Gate Bridge on the coastal beaches. So that's scary. The biologist says that they use the shark attacks from the 50s to put the fear of God in the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
Stack
so
asks
good.
if there's ever been a shark attack inside the bay, and the biologist says no.
He's like, I just said there were no sharks.
He's like, we just went over this.
Yeah.
He says the only ones in the bay are mud dwellers who stay at the bottom. But that's still scary, too. Stack explains some of the previous escape attempts at this point. So do you want to...
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
At the time, Mr. Stack says there were 14 escape attempts and only 3 are still missing. But Wikipedia says that during its 29 years of operation, the penitentiary claimed that no prisoner successfully escaped. A total of 36 prisoners made 14 escape attempts, 2 men trying twice, 23 were caught alive, 6 were shot and killed during their escape, 2 drowned, and 5 are listed as missing and presumed drowned. That's cheating. Because that means that maybe 5 people did get away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first escape attempt was in 1936, a few years after the prison opened. Joseph Bowers received a 25-year sentence for stealing $16.63 from a store in a building that had a post office in it. So it became a federal offense.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Crazy.
Bad luck, Joseph. So he was given the maximum sentence with little chance of parole, which was 25 years. April 27th, 1936, Bowers was working near the incinerator, which was a building that's on the edge of the island. We're going to post so many pictures of Alcatraz.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to see, like, there were some buildings that were more in the center, and then there was, like, some outlying buildings. And, of course, the incinerator would be one of those. So it was on the edge of the island, and Stack is sort of implying, like, he could see San Francisco, and it was so close. Bowers appeared to go berserk and scaled the fence. A guard told him to stop, fired 2 warning shots at his head. Nope, that doesn't make sense.
Above his head.
Above his head. Okay. I was like, that's not really a warning shot.
Not so much of a warning.
It's like, where do you go from there? Like, how do you escalate the situation?
They're burying him as the guard says, I warned him.
He's like, I told you.
I told you.
I told you fucking stop.
Oh, shit. That was funny. Okay. Sorry. So, Bowers appeared to go berserk and scaled the fence. A guard told him to stop and fired 2 warning shots above his head. Bowers made it over the fence. The guard fired again to shoot to kill. Bowers was hit, wounded, and he fell 60 feet to his death. Yep.
On the outside, like down the rocky part.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they didn't
yeah.
find his body, did they?
No, he was gone.
I think the mud sharks ate him. December 16th, 1937, there was another escape attempt. Theodore Cole was 25 with a 50-year sentence for kidnapping. Ralph Rowe was 37 and a bank robber with a 99-year sentence. The two were making mats in the industrial building.
Oh, this is the one that Roy Gardner is said to have helped them plot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Approximately 1 p.m., they sawed out of a shop window and broke through a fence. They grabbed a 5-gallon can, I guess like one of those barrels, and attempted to swim to freedom. Alvin Karpus, an inmate, said he watched the 2 men escape and watched them, quote, sink into the water.
Oh. That's Creepy Carpus. That's public enemy number 1.
Oh, creepy Carpus.
Creepy smile. Okay, I love it. He was like smiling really creepily. He's like, then I saw them drown.
That's what
It's
I
like, and
pictured.
the light around.
The current was fast that day, and the water was about 55 degrees, so it's unlikely they survived. A newspaper article from the 40s was uncovered that claimed that the pair had made it to South America, but officials don't buy it.
With a pail.
Yeah. They're
Come
like,
on.
it's like they're sitting in like a little barrel.
It's not a pail. It's a giant barrel.
5 gallons isn't giant.
I was
5
thinking
gallons.
a big drum, like an oil drum.
I was thinking like how you go over Niagara Falls, like a barrel.
You can't fit in a 5-gallon barrel. Is all I'm saying.
Okay,
You
maybe
okay?
okay. Okay, it could have
Fact checking.
been 50. Could have been 50. Maybe I dropped a
You
zero.
might, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
we have
We'll
so
look
much
into
to
it
go.
later.
I don't
Let's
just
go.
copy
It'll
and
be in
paste,
a
unlike some of
YDFU.
us. Okay. So they're listed as missing, not deceased. So that's one of the cheats where they say everyone's dead.
Right.
Who knows? They could be in South America with their 5-gallon barrel. And then Stack discusses a couple more attempts. 6 months after West and the Anglin brothers escaped, another man escaped, proving the swim could be made.
Oh, yeah.
This is bananas, this story. In the stockroom, and this must have taken years with a successive group of convicts, they either used a stolen spatula from the kitchen to saw away at the bars of the window,
Yes.
or they dipped string in sealing wax and then coated the sealing wax in chemical cleanser to create a file.
Love it.
Holy shit. I mean, necessity is truly the mother of
Yes.
invention. Like,
my God.
Oh my goodness. So
And that would take forever.
also, really, if they did that and they got out, I would be like, goodbye.
Yeah, like you deserve it.
You
You earned it. Yeah.
Yes. They so finally in December of 1962, they eventually filed through the bar. Oh, so in December 1962, John P. Scott, I thought in my closed caption,
Oh, yeah.
it said John P. Scott. And I was like, John P. Scott? That's weird. And yeah, so it's
Oh, yeah, I wrote that too.
yeah, it's John Scott.
Okay.
His middle name is it starts with
Yes,
a P.
it fully said P.
It
Scott.
said P. Scott.
Oh,
and I
like
was-
as one word?
Yeah. So John Scott and Lee Parker, 2 bank robbers, and in my notes I was like, why are there so many fucking bank robbers?
So many.
Once in the water, Parker gave up, but Scott kept going. And he washed up on the south gate of the Golden Gate Bridge. So he made it. He was
Yay.
almost dead.
Amazing. Yeah.
And immediately recaptured.
Oh,
yeah.
Can you imagine?
A bunch of kids were playing down by the water and they thought he had fallen overboard a boat and they thought they were doing a good thing, which they were.
And they told a police officer?
Yeah, they told like their parents who told the police or something like that. It's like, imagine you're like, did I make it? And they're like, sort of.
I'd be like, could you just kill me?
Yeah, just fucking.
That would be.
But then I was thinking like, he probably didn't regret trying. You know, it's like, my gate, whatever, you know.
Right, you
Why
gave
not?
it everything you had.
literally
Yeah.
have nothing else to
Yep.
do.
So then the last escape that they discuss, or the biggest escape attempt that they discuss, is also the most violent. It occurred May 2nd, 1946, and it was called eventually the Battle of Alcatraz. So we listened to a podcast called Case File.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and he's our Australian boyfriend. We love him so. And he does a really great, I think it's like 3 parts. So just skip what I'm about to say and go listen to Casey.
Seriously.
He's amazing.
Casey?
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
nickname.
that's his nickname, Casey
I
Case
didn't
File.
know.
He is the anonymous host.
He is
But some
anonymous.
people call him Casey.
So the Battle of Alcatraz lasted from May 2nd to May 4th, 1946. The escape attempt was planned by Bernard Coy, and then 3 other convicts were involved in the main plan. Marvin Hubbard, Joseph Kretzer, and Clarence Carnes. Our boy Clarence, who, keeps coming up in my notes, was just 16. It was the first year that he was there, I think.
That he did that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then Sam Shockley and Mirren Thompson joined the escapees after the attempt had begun.
Okay.
So this is another example of all of the inmates knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And they were just like biding their time.
Like, whatever you need,
So
we'll help you get
crazy.
there.
So Bernard Coy was a cell house orderly, and over the years he had spotted some flaws in the system. And one of them was the bars that were protecting the gun gallery. And the bars weren't that strong. They could easily be widened. Yes. Yep. All you needed was, quote, a bar spreading device consisting of a nut and a bolt. I don't know. I guess it was kind of like a crank, and you would slowly be able to like push the metal bars apart. Secondly, the corrections officers had set routines that allowed the convicts to predict when someone was coming or going, and when someone would be, if one guard would be by themselves versus 2 guards together, and when the gallery that held all the weapons was unobserved, like when there was a shift change.
Amateur.
On May 2nd, 1946, most of the convicts and corrections officers were in the outside workshops because they all worked. Coy was in the main cell house sweeping the floor around C block when a kitchen orderly, Marvin Hubbard, called an officer, William Miller, to let him in because he had just finished cleaning the kitchen. So basically, everything has to be unlocked. And you have to be let in, and then they close the door and they lock it again. So as Miller was frisking Hubbard for any stolen articles, Coy attacked him from behind. The 2 men overpowered the officer. And then Coy managed to spread the bars. Also, so he widened the gap, but he had been starving himself for months.
That's right.
In order to fit in between the bars.
Commitment.
Yes. Method. So
And I wonder how he did that.
without anybody
Right.
people must have just thought he was sick
Because
or
it
like
wasn't
losing
a
his
hunger
mind.
strike. Or what did he do with the
Yeah.
food? Because
Yeah.
the prison would have like made him.
Yeah,
eat
they would
it.
have force fed him.
Toilet.
So the weapons gallery was. What did you say?
Toilet.
Well, that's what I has to do with mine.
Oh yes, Carlin once stuffed a half a spaghetti squash
Yep.
into a toilet.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Clogged the toilet.
That would make sense.
And we had to have a plumber come out.
Just don't.
And
Yeah.
my mom was like, all this over a squash. Come on.
Just
You're
eat
like,
it,
just
girl.
don't give me the splash. I had a doll that had like a tiny hole in its mouth, and I would shove broccoli into it, and then like bugs came out of it one day.
No.
It was like a Harley.
like-
No.
like,
That's a
okay,
horror
yeah.
film.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we had to get rid of her. Sorry, chatty Cathy. Okay, so he got the weapons because he starved himself skinny by throwing squash into the toilet. And then he was able to overpower and bind another guard named Halsey as he was coming out. So he's got weapons. Guards are all taken care of for now. And then he released Joseph Kretzer and Clarence Carnes from their cells. So Coy kept a rifle, and then he lowered a bunch of weapons down to like the other prisoners. He was like, here, one for you, one for you. Some gas grenades, some clubs,
Oh,
a bunch of keys. He was
Oh
like,
my-
see what these keys do? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, just put them between your fingers.
So then Coy entered D block, which was separated from the main cell house by a concrete wall, and it was used for prisoners in isolation. So he used a rifle to force the officer to open the door to the main cell house and let everybody out. So all of these prisoners that were like badly behaved enough in Alcatraz to be put in this shoe were then released.
Oh my God. Chaos.
Yeah. And then they put all of the guards into D block, I believe. Either D block or C block.
Can you imagine how scary?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's crazy.
And then, so 2 of the convicts that were released were Sam Shockley and Mirren Thompson. It doesn't say if they knew what was happening, and they might not have if they were truly in isolation, but they immediately joined Coy, Carnes, Hubbard, and Kretzer in the main cell house. The other prisoners returned to their cells, which I love. They were like, oh, fuck, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the prisoners were actually like trying to help the guards. Like,
That's
yeah. Yeah.
my
So
gosh.
then all of the guards were then moved to C block, not D block. So the main point of this is to get out of the prison, right? So the escapees now needed to secure a key to get to the yard door, and then get to the dock, and then get to the boat, and then get to fucking San Francisco. I mean, come on. There's a lot of steps.
There are
Lots
a lot
of
steps.
moving parts.
So there was a boat that docked daily between 2:10 and 2:30 p.m. And the plan was to use the officers as hostages and then get the boat
The boat would come every day at the same
time.
What these idiots?
Well, I mean,
They were just doing the best.
it was
they could.
1946. They were just, they didn't know about criminal geniuses yet.
Wow.
So they got the key from Miller, who was attacked first. But they put Miller in with a bunch of other inmates. And they found his keys, and it was before Coy or Carnes or Hubbard or Kretzer, who like knew what was going on, could grab the keys, and the inmates broke the keys, trying to get out of the locks.
Oh my gosh.
So they were stuck.
Wow, that sucks.
The escape attempt was thus inadvertently foiled from the outset. So, of course, shit got worse.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, additional officers who entered the cell house one at a time as part of their regular shift routine were seized, along with the other officers who were sent to go check on the officers who they didn't hear back from.
Because there's no like walkie-talkie during these.
I
days.
mean, they're just
Yeah.
like, hey, where's Barney? I don't know. Like,
Go
Oh my
check.
gosh.
and they're just like picking these guys off one by one. It's crazy. So the prisoners were soon holding 9 officers in 2 separate cells, but they had nowhere to go and they wanted to escape. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
So since they failed in their initial plan, the prisoners decided to shoot it out. It's like, what could go wrong, At 2:35 p.m., all of this is happening like super quickly too. It's like been 3 hours, 4 hours. Coy took the rifle and fired at the officers in some neighboring watchtowers to be like, what's up? Like, something's happening over here. He wounded one of them. And then Associate Warden, Ed Miller, went to the cell house to investigate, armed with a gas billy club, which,
Whoa.
I don't know, it's like a billy club that shoots gas. That's amazing.
What?
I don't know.
Wow.
That's what it said. He comes across Coy, who shot at him, and then Miller was like, yikes, ran away, raised the alarm. So their plan failed. Shockley and Thompson urged Kretzer, who had one of the guns, to kill the hostages in case they testified against him. So Kretzer opens fire, and he wounds 5 of the officers. And he said later, like, I intentionally, like, I didn't shoot them in the head. I didn't, he like tried to backpedal, obviously. He wounded 3 of them seriously, including Bill Miller, the first guy to get his keys taken away, and he later died of his wounds. Clarence Carnes, Sam Shockley, and Mirren Thompson then returned to their cells. So they were like, forget it. We can't escape. We can't go anywhere. We're done. But Coy and Kretzer and Shockley were like, we're in it to win it. Nope. Like,
I mean, at this point,
At this
I
point,
give
you
up.
might as well keep trying.
oh, meanwhile, one of the hostages who thought they were going to die wrote down all the names of the convicts involved, circling the names of the ringleaders.
Whoa.
Yeah. So at 3:30 p.m., motorists on the Golden Gate Bridge heard the first of the shooting. And by 4 p.m., patrol boats were circling the island. The newspaper reporters were everywhere.
Whoa.
And all of San Francisco gathered to the waterfront to watch
Wow.
what was happening. Yeah. At 6 p.m., a squad of armed officers entered the gun cage. They were shot at. One of the officers was killed. 4 other officers were wounded. I mean, this is just like truly a battle, shot for shot,
carnage
back
everywhere.
and forth. So Warden James A. Johnston called in 2 platoons of Marines. And he was like, okay, let's wrap this up. When it got dark, they cut the power, and then the Marines went in, but they were in the wrong cell block. So then they just started getting shot at, and they had to retreat again. Yup. So then at 8 p.m., they tried again. And they finally found the hostages. So they were looking for D because they wanted to get to the hostages to make sure that they were okay. So they opened the door to D block and pulled all the officers out. And then when the last officer was safely out of D block, the Marines opened like a massive barrage of machine guns and mortars and grenades on D block. But none of the prisoners were in D block. Because that's where the hostages were. Like, you're not going to have the people hanging. It's a prison. You can just lock them up and walk away. Like, you don't have to stand there and guard them.
Yeah.
They're locked in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this whole, like, clusterfuck rigmarole for nothing. Yep. Yep. So the Marines tried again. They implemented a plan where they drilled holes in the prison roof and dropped grenades into the areas they believed the convicts were to force them into a utility corridor where they could be cornered. Crazy tactic. Apparently, they learned it fighting the Japanese.
Whoa.
In World War II, like in the Pacific War.
But, like, what if that's not where they were?
Who knows? They have no idea what's happening. Think about it. There's 3 blocks and there's a cage of weapons that's empty, and you have no idea what's going on.
That's crazy.
So what are you going to do? You're just going to start dropping bombs. All the officers are out. Everybody's accounted for. The only people left are the prisoners.
They knew they were all out. Okay.
Yeah, they got, I think it was 9 of them, and they got them all out. Okay. The following morning, squads of armed officers periodically rushed into the cell house, firing repeatedly, and then ran back out.
Oh my gosh.
And at 9:40 on May 4th, they finally entered the corridor and found the bodies of Joseph Kretzer, Bernard Coy, and Marvin Hubbard. Weirdly, or sadly, or ironically, before the escape attempt, Hubbard had petitioned for a writ of habeas corpus on the grounds that his confession had been beaten out of him, and he had produced hospital records to back up his claims. A federal hearing into the matter had been scheduled for the Monday after he died. And the prosecutor said that he probably had a fair chance of being released.
Whoa.
So they found out 3 of them were dead. The other 3, Thompson, Shockley, and Carnes, were all like rearrested or whatever, put up on trial for the murder of the guard, Miller. Essentially, Shockley's IQ was reported to be 54. He didn't even know where he was. He believed that he was a radio receiver, and he walked around Alcatraz picking up the news from what he described. Yeah, basically the fillings in his teeth. And he thought that they should move the trial to Spain or Mexico because no one would know who they were. Like, he was totally he wasn't crazy. He was just, I mean, he had a really low IQ.
Or maybe both.
A little of both, yeah. During the trial, a lot of like the famous prisoners, like the Birdman of Alcatraz, they appeared as witnesses. Carnes took the stand and he said that he participated in the riot because he did not think anyone would get hurt. Clarence Carnes was like, oh, I thought they were just going to like get into those tunnels and take off. I didn't realize they were going to kill all these people and all this stuff was going to go crazy.
What?
So it goes back to all of those tunnels being there for like the pre-Civil War. So there was this urban legend that there were dungeons down there and a system of tunnels. And if you could just get to the tunnels, you could get off Alcatraz. And he was only 16. So I don't. So Thompson and Shockley were executed in the gas chamber at San Quentin.
Whoa.
A nameless Alcatraz prison guard who was at the Battle of Alcatraz was a witness, and when it was over, he said, that makes it 5-2, a little more even now. Carnes was eventually released from prison in 1973. However, he breached his parole conditions, was sent back to prison, and died there from complications from AIDS in 1988. He died at the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri. Originally buried in an unmarked grave in Springfield, his body was later moved to his native Oklahoma by his friend and former Alcatraz inmate, James Whitey Bulger.
Whoa.
Yeah!
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Was he like the only person left that cared?
Yeah, I think so. He was the only person left that was alive.
Wow.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, 2 corrections officers, William A. Miller and Harold Stites, were killed, along with 3 of the inmates. 11 corrections officers and 1 uninvolved convict were also injured, and the surviving convicts were later executed for their roles. And that's the Battle of Alcatraz.
Wow.
That
What a
is so
cluster.
crazy and so good that more people didn't die.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
honestly
actually
shocking.
honestly thought you were going to say more people
I
died.
think that the fact that the other prisoners that were like in isolation all were like,
They were like, no thanks.
They were like, we're good. We're
Yeah.
already like so much in trouble. We're sitting in this tiny room naked. Because they said that,
Oh, yeah.
they said that like when you were really badly behaved, they would take away everything.
Your clothes.
Your blanket.
your mattress.
Yeah.
And you would just be naked
Yeah.
in like
And
a
it was
concrete.
cold there.
Yeah. They were probably like, you know what? We're not going to. It's only going to get worse if we get involved in this.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's
Which
crazy.
is shocking because you would think there would be more of a group mentality or whatever that's
Yeah,
called.
or just that they would take advantage of the chaos to
Yeah.
try
Of
to
course.
get out.
Do
to get out
something
themselves.
interesting.
You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like imagine having this whole thing planned and then a bunch of dummy prisoners got to the keys first and broke the fucking keys off in the lock. Like being
how
like
frustrating.
That's
Oh
why
my
I think
God.
Clarence Carnes was like, yeah, these other guys did a little bit better job thinking this through.
Carnes was like, I've witnessed
I've seen
many
it.
an escape attempt.
This is the best attempt I've seen so far.
Where do we go now?
All right.
Okay,
Let's get
we're
back
gonna
to that
jump back
test.
into the test.
Let's go back to Diana, see what she's doing.
Okay, checking back in with Diana. She says that now Dave he's 35 minutes into his swim. She says he's made it 2/3 of the way. So it's definitely taking longer than expected at the beginning because they said 45 minutes. The rafters have broken free from the shore of Alcatraz and have finally been able to catch the current a bit and are making better progress than she expected. Because I truly was like, this is not happening. Like, these guys are not going to get anywhere. They finally started to get a little distance. She says they're going 1.5 to 2 miles an hour. Stack says the rafters are getting very cold and frustrated.
And they look miserable.
Yeah, they look
They
very
do.
unhappy.
Oh my God. So Diana shows them, and they're basically being constantly covered in water. Like they're not floating atop a raft. They're in the water. Some of them are laying on their backs rowing. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So awkward. I don't know if they were doing that because they were so cold on their bellies or like so.
Oh, maybe because your heart? Yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, but anyway, they're very fit, very experienced kayakers. So to see them like in this much of a
Struggling.
struggle is kind of crazy. She also explains that the convicts probably didn't have any traffic for their attempt because it was the middle of the night. And there's a lot of traffic during the day for the kayakers and for Dave. She says there's barges, tugboats, tourist boats, even seals. So it's somewhat entertaining, although they're casting quite a bit of a wake. I was like, this lady is a bitch. Like, what?
Wait, what?
She
did
said
sound
watching
snotty.
them struggle against like all these different things that were causing all these currents was somewhat entertaining. I was like, you bitch.
Meanwhile, the guys on the raft are like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I
So,
like her.
I mean, now that I know she has some experience doing some of these things, I'm less mad.
You just thought she was like a...
Yeah, I was like, you snooty, weird reporter that doesn't know what you're talking about. So they check in on Dave to make sure he's still okay. They ask him if he knows what his name is.
Yes.
Things like that, which he does. She says he's responding well, but he's cramping in one leg. Stack says he's just a few yards away. Diana is concerned about the cramping. And Diana explains that once he comes out of the water, his body temp will drop even more. So they'll only be able to talk to him for a little bit. Then he'll put on his running shoes and run. I was just really impressed with Dave because he just swam
And then he runs.
45 minutes freezing cold and then he gets up and runs.
Yeah, nightmare.
Isn't that what triathletes do, though? Don't they like
But not
swim
to
and
that
run?
length.
Oh, that's true.
And that cold. And then when he jumps out of the water, he goes, that was really cold. I was like, yeah. So he was just over an hour in the water. He says halfway through the swim, his feet and legs went numb. In the final 10 to 15 minutes, his feet and legs totally cramped up. So he like can't even feel what he's doing. Diana has the gall to comment on his slurred speech.
Yes, that's right.
This bitch. He goes, yeah, my chin is really cold. And says he for sure couldn't have gone another hour. Yeah, you probably
No,
couldn't have gone
man.
another 10 minutes, honey.
As we all put our slippers on.
I know.
Seriously.
Such a nightmare. Dave does say that he thinks for sure the inmates could have made the swim. He says it's the coffee that probably would have been their motivation. I'm like,
That's a strange
I think it
sentence.
was freedom. Dave loved it though, and has
Dave loved it.
and he has some champ at the end.
He celebrates immediately, even before his run.
Yeah, I think he really wanted coffee, but they were like, here's some cold champagne. And he was like, okay. Diana checks back in with the rafters, and they're all like,
They're
seriously,
pissed.
fuck this.
Yeah. They're
The
so
raft
mad.
is sad and folded up, and one of them just starts swimming. One guy's just like, bye. Just goes swimming off on his own.
Oh, shit.
So Diana leans over the side and is like, come on over, Bill. Like, it's just so easy. Just, can you come the extra way over here to my boat? So Bill just does it. And he says, we're actually fairly comfortable, but we're not getting anywhere, and the boat is sort of falling apart. He says if they had to guess, they don't think the convicts could have made it on their boat, especially without getting exercise. They wouldn't have been strong enough and probably would have gotten hypothermia. He also says even if they did make it, he thinks they would have committed other crimes in the 20 years since and probably would have been caught again.
Yeah, that was funny.
Okay, that's not what we're asking you about.
He also threw in his criminal justice degree.
Yes.
He's like, but they were bad guys, so probably not. He says, I have a feeling they were pretty screwed. He's also probably like, are you serious, bitch? You're going to interview me while I am in this frigid-ass water while everyone else is getting pulled out.
She didn't even let him out of the water.
The other guys are getting pulled out, and she's like, I'm just going to interview while you're down there.
She had a job to do, okay? They had a budget, but they probably didn't have that long.
She's a motivational
I guess.
speaker.
Yeah, she was like, we got to get this in time.
Oh, man.
So they give up and pull the sad raft, and the guy's back in the boat. Stack asks if we think they survived the escape. He says, we've seen today that it certainly is possible, but there's been so few clues to prove they made it. Whether or not the men survived, their escape compromised the reputation of Alcatraz, and less than a year later, the prison closed. For that reason alone, it could be said the men beat the rock. And that was the end of the test.
I have something to add to that about swimming from and to Alcatraz. So,
Okay.
Yay.
And I'm surprised that they didn't mention this in the episode, but in 1974, at age 60, Jack LaLanne.
Oh, I read about this.
The juicer guy?
Before he was the juicer guy, he was Jack LaLanne.
Yeah.
Okay.
Swam handcuffed and shackled with a 1,000-pound boat tied to a belt around his waist from Alcatraz to San Francisco.
Yeah,
Made
man.
it. Also,
Shackled feet?
apparently, well, he's like a beast, physical body, whatever he was.
He was.
Then there's also children that swim it. There's a 15-year-old who has made the swim 33 times.
Oh, calm down, Bobby.
Mitali Kanzode.
Take your medication, Bobby.
And it's like there's a swim thing that happens every year called Shark Fest or something, but they know there's no sharks in
Sign
the
me
water.
up. The children that have done it have less body weight, but how are they? Are there times of the year it's not that cold?
They're in wetsuits.
Yeah,
For
they're
sure.
in wetsuits.
Okay.
But she said that makes it hard because there's lots of chafing that happens, and it's still really cold.
The chafe is real.
She says, quote, the real threat is hypothermia. Wetsuits chafe horribly. She says, quote, you feel so cold your limbs start to go numb. Sometimes it's difficult to tell your hands are turning white. Despite this, she is already swimming races in, quote, skin without a wetsuit in order to prepare herself for more advanced races, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a race for kids. Her sister's done it too, and they did it at age 8 and 10.
It's just a race for those two kids.
I'm sure.
So, I mean,
Do
people
the parents
do
have to
it.
sign a thing
Oh,
that's
yeah,
like
of
my
course.
child might die?
Yes, 100%.
But people do it. Like, I think they could have made it.
Has anyone ever died doing it?
Oh, I don't know, probably.
Yeah, like a bunch of people. We just went through that.
We just literally talked about it.
Oh, Carlin, come
You're
back.
right, you're right,
Come
you're
back. So, what do you guys think? Do you think they made it or what?
I like to think they made it.
I do think there's a chance.
Me too. I hope
I
they
think
made
if
it.
and I worked that long and were that fucking smart.
Gluing hair to heads.
Yes.
Come on.
like
You
that
had a
one
will.
Thomas Kent guy was like, their plan was to go to Mexico, and maybe then they went farther to Brazil, like that one report. So
Yeah.
And the one guy was hot. Of course he had a girlfriend that picked them up.
Yeah,
Come on. He probably had a girlfriend with a boat.
You know what? Probably the mud sharks were like, who is this hottie? They swam up to the top. They just pushed him along.
Oh my goodness.
the mud
They made
sharks
sure he got there.
helped.
The mud sharks helped him get
He
there.
had like 1 foot on a mud shark and he was like skiing. like,
yeah, the
ice
mud
skiing.
sharks were like, oh, a long guy. And then
Hello.
they just helped him get there.
Yeah. I mean, they don't do much. They're probably super bored. They see a hottie. They're like, hey, what's up?
Eating mud
they're
all day.
literally bottom dwellers.
Yes.
Oh, man.
But I mean, yeah, if you just had like the image of a beach in Mexico in your mind while you're swimming, like,
Well,
I
and
think
that's
you
what
can get there.
that's what that guy Dave kept saying. He's like, they
Yeah.
were like adrenaline.
Adrenaline will take you a ways.
Yeah,
If like moms can lift cars
Yep.
and things like that. Yeah.
for sure.
I like to think they did.
Me too. I hope they ended up drinking Mai Tai somewhere. But then that one guy was like, can I please have health insurance? Like, ooh.
And then that's where we draw the line.
Yeah.
Just like 50% of our country.
Although I don't know if they did, if maybe all three did. That's kind of, that would be
Yeah,
kind
I mean,
of
they
bonkers.
certainly were fine with leaving one man behind. They were like,
Yep.
you chubby Pooh Bear and fuckface. Be like that other guy and starve yourself. What are you doing? What are you using that blanket for? Just munching away. Okay, so do you guys want to know what happened after Alcatraz closed?
Great.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Okay, and then we're going to be done, and this will only be a 6-hour long episode. So, because the penitentiary cost much more to operate than other prisons, nearly $10 a day per prisoner per day, as opposed to the $3 a day per prisoner per day, and half a century of saltwater saturation had severely eroded the buildings, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy ordered the penitentiary closed on March 21st, 1963. In addition, citizens were increasingly protesting the environmental effects of sewage being released into the San
Oh,
Francisco.
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have like a plumbing structure.
No.
They were just like poop, bay,
Poop Bay.
poop, bay, poop, bay.
She's doing a hand motion of the poop going to the bay.
I mean, it was like 250 inmates and then 60 people who work for the prison and their families.
Oh, that's a
So
lot of poop.
that's a lot of poop in the bay. So the last 27 convicts left Alcatraz in leg irons and handcuffs on March 21st, 1963. In a way, they too were escaping from the rock. When the last prisoner got on the boat, Frank C. Weatherman, he was asked how he felt about leaving, and he said, quote, "It's mighty good to get up and leave. This rock ain't good for nobody."
Wow.
There's a whole other weird thing. Do you want to hear about it? It involves Native Americans taking over Alcatraz. Did you guys know about this?
Sure. No, I don't know about this.
Okay, so we can cut this or whatever.
Oh, tell me.
So, beginning in November 20th, 1969, a group of Native Americans called the United Indians of All Tribes, mostly college students from San Francisco, occupied the island to protest federal policies related to the American. I'm using Indians because that's what the article said.
Yeah.
Some of them were children of Native Americans who had relocated to the city as part of the Bureau of Indian Affairs Indian Termination Policy.
Whoa.
You guys remember that? They like pulled Native Americans out of where they were living and put them in cities so that they would get acclimated and
Yeah.
my God.
They also did that. They did that to kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were the children of some of those people. And they became college students and they took over.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the occupiers, who stayed on the island for nearly 2 years, that's crazy, demanded the island's facilities be adapted and new structures be built for Native American education, ecology center, and a cultural center. The Native Americans claimed that the islands, by provision of the Treaty of Fort Laramie, like way to go deep cut, between the U.S. and the Sioux, said that they owned the island. Like whatever was in the treaty, I guess Alcatraz, Angel Island, and the other island, there's 3 of them, were included. During the 19 months and 90s of the occupation by the Native Americans, several buildings at Alcatraz were damaged or destroyed by fire, including the lighthouse keeper's home, the warden's home, and the officers' club, the recreation hall, and the Coast Guard quarters. The origins of the fires is disputed. The government says it was them, and they say it was the government.
Whoa. But either way, they believe everyone believes it's arson and not
Yes.
an accident?
Yep.
Wow.
The U.S. government demolished a number of the other buildings, mostly apartments, after the occupation had ended. But graffiti from the period of the Native American occupation is still visible at many locations on the island. And I have some pictures, so we will post them. Left without power, fresh water, and in the face of diminishing support and sympathy, the number of occupiers began to dwindle. During the occupation, President Richard Nixon rescinded the Indian Termination Policy. What? Who even names something
Seriously,
that?
that's
like, I don't
not
even want to
okay.
say that out loud.
I know.
It's painful.
Oh, God. He rescinded it on June 11th, 1971, and then a large force of government officers removed the remaining 15 people from the island. Though fraught with controversy and forcibly ended, the occupation is hailed by many as a success for having attained international attention for the situation of Native people in the United States and sparking more than 200 instances of civil disobedience among Native Americans. Today, Alcatraz Penitentiary is now a museum, tourist attraction, and shows special exhibits. You can take a ferry out day or night and do a tour.
It's not cheap.
It is not
I
cheap.
know. I never went when I've been there.
But I'll link to
because
it because now I definitely want to do it the next time I go to San
I
Francisco.
want to
I kinda
go.
do too. I remember seeing it from the shore and being like, I want to go, but it was
Yeah, I've just
expensive.
stood on the shore and stared at it.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to do a night one. So it turns out Alcatraz also has merch for sale. The Golden Gate National Park Conservancy. They have fun replica signs from the prison, like Alcatraz regulation numbers. So regulation number 23, if you make groundless complaints for the purpose of creating dissatisfaction and or stirring up trouble, you will be subject to disciplinary action. Yeah. Wow. Regulation number 5, you are entitled to food, clothing, shelter, and medical assistance. Anything else you get is a privilege. And I feel like that's like a sign that like your grandpa would have had in the garage.
Yes.
You know, like be like
similar to if you don't watch your children, we will give them caffeine and a puppy.
Oh my God, yes.
So many coffee shops.
Yes. So the website also has books like The Birdman of Alcatraz by Robert Stroud and a book on the Native American occupation, Al Capone. They even have a cookbook written by the Alcatraz Women's Club, which what the fuck is that? Because there were no women in Alcatraz.
That? Weird.
I don't know.
Literally, what is it?
That, you know, I can't research everything.
Yeah, no.
But so fun. And I definitely am going to buy
Didn't deep dive the women's club?
I didn't, but I'm definitely going to buy as the cookbook.
Yeah, let's make something.
Yes.
Yeah, we can like put it on Patreon. We can do like a little cook-off, little alky cook-off.
Birdseed
It's like
alcohol.
Page 1, toilet wine.
Page 2, toilet wine.
Page 3,
Cooking and fermenting with birdseed.
So anyway, a place that was a former beacon for punishment above reform, filled with the worst of the worst, who were apparently mostly bank robbers, now does family tours and sells cookbooks. Love it.
Yep, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Field trip.
Yep.
That was it, Alcatraz, baby.
Oh my God, we made it.
We did it.
We are so proud of ourselves.
We are.
Epic.
Shamelessly.
Shamelessly proud of ourselves.
Yeah, we've done a great job.
This was not the easiest. Well, I think it came out.
It was kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wonder
I
if
thought
there's
it was
going to be
fun.
any more where it's one topic.
I don't know.
And we've had a few people who have been looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, we hope if you were looking forward to this, we did okay.
Question mark?
Medium, at least.
Medium, maybe. Give us just like a B.
Just let us know.
B minus. What are,
Sharesy
Sharesy Feelsies.
I can start.
You start, girl.
You steal mine.
I'm not. I already know what yours is going to be.
You
Don't
knew.
worry. So mine is a couple weeks ago, which when this drops, it'll be like a month ago. I got to see J.S. Ondara and Kat Clyde in Seattle. They're two amazing musicians at Columbia City Theater, so it was a really small venue. And if you don't know either of their music, please go listen right now. They're both on Spotify. I think Kat Clyde has a new album dropping soon. She just came out with a new song today, actually, when we're recording. And then J.S. Ondara is just an amazing folk singer from Kenya. He grew up in Nairobi, and he told us a story about how like he would buy bootlegged or like burned CDs off of people on the street, and that's how he learned about American folk music. And then as a teenager or like for college, I think he moved here to the States all by himself and like is making it work as a folk singer, and he's incredible.
That's cool.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, J.S. Ondara, and then Kat Clyde opened for him, and she's great too. She's Canadian, so I love them, and it was wonderful. It was like one of the best shows I've ever been to, and super fun to see them in a small venue. So yeah,
Wow, that's awesome.
that was my Sharesy.
Carla?
Mine is Beyonce Homecoming.
I think we all saw that coming.
Yeah, we knew.
We all saw that Homecoming.
Yeah, I just watched it with my girlfriends a couple nights ago, and it was super fun.
It's incredible.
amazing. It's about Beychella.
Even
and
if you think you don't like Beyonce or don't care,
yeah,
you
just
should watch it.
please appreciate what a fucking badass businesswoman she is. Like the way she creates her things, like from top to bottom, like every single detail, which most artists don't do. But yeah, it's just it's like behind the scenes, but you get to see all the performances and
she cared a lot about bringing African American culture of all kinds to Coachella, which
yes,
had not been there before.
And
for the most
she was
part.
the first Black woman to headline Coachella, which is crazy because it's been around 20 years. But yeah, it's amazing.
It's really
and there's a live
amazing.
album that goes with it. So get excited.
Get excited.
I guess it's been 2 weeks since we recorded. So in those 2 weeks, I listened to a bunch of podcasts and read a bunch of books. It's amazing how productive
A bunch.
you could be. So I have 2 podcast recommendations. The first is called The Ballad of Billy Balls. It's awesome.
I just, Root of Evil had a little preview of that.
Yeah, so it's basically, it takes place in Manhattan in like the 1970s. So all of the crime and misery and bankruptcy. And it's this guy, Io, and his mom. You find out that it's his mom, and they're searching for the person that killed her husband. And it's... I got like super emotional listening to it because it just made me really homesick. It's just like a really, like it talks about like the Bowery and East Village, and it's just really great. I've read some criticism. People don't like Io. They don't like the mom because they can't stand her vocal fry.
Oh, Lord.
And to those people I say, don't fucking listen. Like, it's so good and it's so beautiful. And it's
by
like,
Crimetown, right?
Yeah, and it's by the guys who did Crimetown, which is such a fantastic series as well. And then the other thing I started listening to that I thought you might be talking about, but Uncover, who did the Nexium pod.
I've listened to all of that.
So their newest season is called The Village, and it's about men in the Toronto area who were murdered by Bruce MacArthur, but then a large group of men from the 70s and 80s who have gone missing, and now there's a reporter going back because you don't start killing people in your 60s.
No.
So
And they're very violent crimes like his, and
yeah,
they
the
also
MO is
they
very
also
similar.
interview the woman who he was a gardener for
Yeah.
her
Like where he was like dumping
bodies. Yeah,
Like,
it's really
it's
good.
crazy. Yeah. And then the last thing is the author Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, and they're both really good and really fun reads.
Oh, is Daisy Jones the same author?
Yeah,
did not
she is
realize
amazing at finding like a gimmick that works.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Yeah. Daisy Jones and the Six is basically like a book version of Almost Famous. It's so good.
What?
Yes.
Eliza's in.
So good.
Sweet dreams.
So good.
It's all happening.
Well, I had
Hashtag
read that
it's all
before I read Evelyn Hugo because I didn't like the cover for Evelyn Hugo because I always judge a book by its cover. And they're both amazing.
Yeah.
And she's a great read. So those are my... And then I want to do a feelsies really quick for all the people that left us reviews when we asked them
Yes.
Yeah.
to. It's been a minute,
You
so we kind of...
buried the haters.
Yeah, but to those of you who left reviews to help us bury the haters, that was really awesome. And it just feels really good to be part of a community that cares
It
about.
was incredible.
So we just want to thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we read every single one.
Yeah. And like when
mean a lot.
we told you that we were sad and that someone had said some pretty terrible things about us, all of you just jumped to our defense, and it felt really great.
Yeah, it
so
was super
thank you.
sweet. Thanks.
Okay, so next episode, 2 weeks from today, we've got the unexplained death of Mickey Thompson, and then we've got a wanted segment, Michael Wade Mohan, Mysterious Legends, Bigfoot Baby.
It was Allison's segment.
It was supposed to be my segment, but
She was like, I just feel like maybe
somebody from the Pacific Northwest should do this thing I fucking think is stupid.
Really represent.
And Carolyn was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because she's a hero.
And then The Lost Heirs of George Stein and The Unexplained Death of Joyce McLean.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's a lot of segments.
How could it not be?
How could it not be?
We
I
got
mean,
that Sasquatch.
We just made Alcatraz our bitch, and now we're
Yes,
doing
we did.
Bigfoot. So have a seat.
Our dick bitch.
Our dick bitch.
Oh, so we shouted out our patrons earlier, but if you want to become one of them, you can go to patreon.com/Resolve Mysteries Podcast. And support us at the $5 a month level, or we have other levels if you want some other goodies. But at that level, you'll get 2 extra episodes a month. And you can also go to resolvemysteries.com/support to see some other ways to support the show. Send us your stories for listener short stacks. We release them whenever we get enough to make a full episode, so keep those coming. And if you want to email us like your favorite unsolved mystery or cold case or any nostalgia you have about the show, you can contact us at resolvemysteriespodcast.com, and our email is resolvemysteriespodcast@gmail.com. Our P.O. Box is another place you can send us these stories or anything else. 14005, Portland, Oregon, 97293. And then really important, especially maybe for this Alcatraz episode, if you want to see some photos that we've gathered and posted, go to Instagram at @re_solve mysteries and Twitter and Facebook at Resolve the Pod, and then subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Tell a friend. We love you so.
Tell a friend.
Please tell your friends.
I think that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friends are good.
Friends
Bye.
are good.
She's over it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
for listening.
Don't go to prison. Bye. You copy from unsolved.com like me, then you feel like you didn't do a good job. But
I recorded that just
we'll
now.
see what happens.
Retro. We're definitely going to get a comment like that.
I'm going to give a full disclaimer.
It'll be like, all they do is read from the wiki page
Yeah.
on unsolved.com. I could do that.
Okay, then do it.
Then fucking do it.
And also, that's not true that that's all we do.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's 1000%
Just straight up not true.
Nope.